to another episode of the Life's Playbook podcast. I'm your host, Quinn Jackson. I'm joined here today by my co-host, Noah Hawley. This is Season 2, Episode 10 of the show. The 2 episodes left before we hit Season 3, technically speaking. So, with that being said, let's get into today's episode talking about more NFL news. Only this time we got a lot to cover. Quite a bit to cover. Quite a lot went down these past couple of days, and a lot of major receivers have hit the trade block. So, we're going to talk a little bit about them receivers a little bit. Talk about some of the other guys that have been cut / released. And we're going to fill you guys in with any NFL offseason news y'all have been missing out on or have not kept up with. So, with that being said, let's get into today's episode. Before we get started with today's episode, make sure to download Prize Picks, the most elite sports fantasy app. You can't go wrong on that app. Download Prize Picks now and submit your daily streak picks in now to unlock free reward lineups for a chance at big cash prizes. So, let's get into today's episode, shall we? Talking about the NFL and the offseason. It is truly here. It is truly here, and we've got some major names in free agency now, and we've got some major names that have been cut, and we've got some major names that have hit the trade block. So, one of the major names that has hit the trade block in surprising fashion is wide receiver DK Metcalf from the Seattle Seahawks. He has hit the trade block. Don't know where he's going to go. There are a lot of wide receiver needy teams out there. The biggest hotspot right now is the Chargers because let's look at their wide receiver room. It's pretty bad outside of Lad McConkey. So that's the biggest landing spot for DK right now. But let's get a little bit of your consensus on where DK might end up. Was him declaring a trade surprising
So,
to you or
with
not?
him declaring a trade, I don't really see a reason as to why he really wanted out. I mean, he might be going for coaches. He might be because of Tyler Lockett leaving, but I don't really see a true reason as to why he's like wanting to trade out. He's getting paid good. He gets decent targets, but for him to ask for a trade, it shocked me, man. For where I think he could end up on the Chargers. Chargers have no depth or like well-known players in their receiver room, or he could go to the Patriots. Patriots need receivers. He could also end up but he could end up on the Raiders to be with his old coach, Pete Carroll.
Raiders, yeah, I did forget about that. Pete Carroll is on the Raiders. That would be quite a reunion. DK and Pete Carroll back in the same organization. But that is true. His numbers haven't looked great over the past couple seasons in Seattle. They Oddly enough, Seattle still has had winning seasons. It's not like they've been kind of mid, but they've still been like on the cusp of making the playoffs. They arguably could have made it last season. They finished 10-7, but the Seahawks haven't been terrible. So I'm kind of surprised myself that he requested a trade. I mean, I guess the production over there hasn't been great for him specifically, and Tyler Lockett did. Um, he is out of the organization as well. They also released him, which is another major name that they released. Tyler Lockett has been in the league for 10 years. So as of right now, it's just JSN, Jackson Smith and Jigba, holding the wide receiver room down. As far as Tyler Lockett and DK, on my opinion, I think DK, he's probably going to want to go to a team that, one, has a pretty poor wide receiver room, so he can come in there and be the wide receiver one. And two, he's probably going to want to go to a place that's high society, somewhere like LA, a place where he can make that bread. Now, I'm not saying he's going to get that bread because, again, his production lately has been a little poor, has been low. But he can definitely, on a new team, he can start anew. And I think that's where he'll go. As far as Tyler Lockett, he's been in the league 10 seasons. I think he's approaching his final days, I'd say. He's got a Super Bowl. He was with the Seahawks in Russell Wilson's prime when they won the Super Bowl against the Patriots. He's got a Super Bowl to his name. Great receiver. I think he's coming up on his last seasons here. He'll probably get picked up, but I don't think he'll get picked up faster than DK because there are a lot of teams out there that need a wide receiver
Yeah,
for him. And like I said before, it is just JSN holding down the receiver room for Seattle. So it's going to be interesting what the Seahawks do now with the receiver room, because now they're kind of in receiver jeopardy. They don't really have. Not saying JSN isn't that dude, because he's going to get a lot more touches now. But you know, where do you think the Seahawks could go with this, with free agency, or maybe as far as draft wise? Do you think now they're setting up to draft a younger receiving core with JSN, or do you think they'll go out there and trade for maybe a better receiver than
So
DK?
for them, I feel they could be looking to get some guys out of the draft. But with Tyler Lockett leaving and DK, they're freeing up a lot of cap room. So they could find a way to make some trades. They don't really have like a lot of players to trade to get big name players, like good wide receiver ones. But, maybe there's someone in free agency that's coming up that could replace, what DK is leaving or Tyler Lockett's leaving. And about Tyler Lockett, he's a good receiver. I could see him getting picked up like maybe later on in the season, kind of like maybe week 2, week 3. But I don't really see him getting picked up during the offseason as of now, because he is an older guy, he is a veteran. But it's just how it falls, man.
Seahawks are going to have to figure that out. I'm guessing they're setting up for a much younger team. Most likely that's why they made this move. And I guess DK did genuinely want out. But again, in my opinion, it's a weird situation because the Seahawks haven't been bad. They just haven't. They've been on the cusp a lot, making the playoffs. So, with that being said, you mentioned cap space, and with that being said, there have been some major things that not only the Browns did. I don't
Yes,
know if you
sir.
saw what the Browns did earlier this morning with the Deshaun Watson contract, but we finally moved into the right direction with this dude, as well as there have been Joey Bosa, the Chargers, 5-time Pro Bowler defensive end. They cut him for cap space. Let's talk a little bit about those two happenings, especially with the Cleveland Browns. We finally did something, finally stepped in the right direction. Now I don't know the full details about this restructure. I don't know if they restructured. I know we freed up about 36 million. That was the estimate that we freed up in cap space with the Deshaun Watson contract. Don't know if they restructured his years on the contract or not, but the Browns finally moved in the right direction. They restructured Deshaun Watson, and it is definitely needed. Definitely needed, because now we can go out there and be a little flexible in free agency. What do you think about that? That we finally did something right as an
So yeah,
organization.
they freed up that cap space. They were also able to convince Joel to not retire. So that could mean that Garrett is staying with Cleveland, or it could also mean that they're figuring stuff out to increase the cap space. And hey, Joey Bosa, if Miles leaves, if we get rid of Miles Garrett and Joey Bosa ends up landing with the Browns, that I wouldn't be opposed to it, man. And Deshaun Watson, he's still being overpaid. He shouldn't be making more than a mil, because like you've been a real poison to my team. If you see this Deshaun Watson, man, you've been a poison to the Cleveland Browns. Like, okay, Joe Flacco came off the couch and he put up way more numbers than Deshaun Watson did, bro. And yeah, Deshaun Watson just been a poison to the team. This is for sure going to be his last year with the Browns, and we're never going to see him again.
And good riddance to that too. I mean, we brought him in at the peak of his career, coming off that beautiful 2019 season with the Texans, and we thought he was going to be able to replicate exactly that here in Cleveland, and he did the complete opposite. So good riddance to that. If he is coming up on his last legs in Cleveland, he's not even going to be able to play this season because he's going to be out again off the same injury that just got fixed. So, props to the Cleveland Browns. We finally did something. We finally did something right as an organization, and Joey Bosa is on the market now. He is, and if Miles Garrett ends up walking, which he probably will, don't know where, but if he does end up walking, Joey Bosa could be a good replacement for somebody like Miles. Now, obviously, he's not his brother, who's got 2 DPOIs. He's rolling in San Fran, so he's nowhere close to his brother, but he's definitely a good placeholder for Miles. Definitely a good placeholder. 5-time Pro Bowler. He's still got some years left in him. He is a slightly on the older side, but he could definitely, when Miles Garrett walks, walks, because we know what's going to happen. It's just a matter of time to where he goes. But when Myles Garrett walks, I think the Browns should seriously consider looking into getting Joey Bosa. We should do that. He could be a great placeholder for Myles, and he doesn't have to be there. Joey wouldn't have to be here for like the remainder of his career. He could just be here for a couple seasons or two, unless if we decide to go after somebody like Abdul Carter in the future, a younger defensive end. But he could definitely be a good placeholder. I'm surprised the Chargers cut him in the first place, though. But again, it was a cap space move. The Chargers are probably setting up to sign somebody younger and at his position. If not, use that money to trade for some other needy positions that they have. But those were some big cap space moves, especially on the Browns, because man, we needed that. I lit up this morning seeing that. I mean, that we finally did something right. Now we just gotta use that free cap space to help all the other positions and help Cam Ward, who's probably going to be coming in the draft. So we got to use that money efficiently. But man, we did something right.
Yes, sir.
I'm proud of the Browns today, man. We did something right. So, with that being said, there have been other receivers have entered the free agency board as well. I know D-Hop is on there, Stephon Diggs is on there, Devontae Adams is on there, Chris Godwin is on there. He came up on his last season with Tampa, so he's a free agent now. He's definitely, on any other team, he could definitely be a wide receiver one. He is slightly on the older side, however, but there are other big name receivers out there that need jobs, per se, quote unquote. They need jobs. A lot of these guys are older guys, so they could just come in and be mentors to the younger receivers, be veterans. But let's start from Chris Godwin all the way down to D-Hop, where these guys could potentially land. Let's start with Chris Godwin. What do you think Chris Godwin is going to land?
I could see Chris Godwin maybe going to the Jets, maybe going to the Patriots. I could also see him maybe going to the Chargers. Anywhere with a needed wide receiver room. I can see him landing anywhere there, helping out these young guys, coaching them up. But I don't think he's going to put up any. I'm not saying he's not going to put up any numbers, but he could put up some numbers this year.
That's true. Chris Godwin he's great. Great player. Again, on the older side, he's very reliable. I'm surprised the Buccaneers didn't attempt to give him any offers to get him to stay, because his whole career was built in Tampa. But I also understand the move. The McMillan or whoever the younger guy's name over there in Tampa, he's had a breakout season, and they probably want to move more his direction because he is a younger guy, and they're probably going to ride on him a lot more. Same thought process with the Eagles and Cooper DeJean and why they cut Darius Slay. The Bucs are probably going to ride a lot more on their younger guys who have had breakout seasons. So it's understandable why he would leave. As far as where I think Chris Godwin could go, I think, like you said, he could definitely go to a team that needs a reliable guy. I agree with you on the numbers standpoint. I don't think he'll put up big numbers at this stage in his career anymore. If he does, that's great, but I don't think he'll be that kind of receiver anymore. I think he'll kind of be a mentor to wherever he goes, mentors the younger guys. He'll still get involved, don't get me wrong. He'll still have some impact to the team that he goes to, but I agree with you there. He probably won't put up big numbers like he would in Tampa. But yeah, I'm a little surprised that Tampa didn't at least throw some offers his way to try to get him to stay. But these teams are all moving in younger directions, man. They're all moving in younger directions. They're relying on their younger guys to step up, and some of these younger guys have had breakout seasons. So let's move on to Stephon Diggs next, because he is on the free agency. Will the Texans, will they throw offers his way, or will he bounce to another team?
So, Stephon Diggs, I was a big Stephon Diggs fan, man. I like what he did, but his injury killed him. So I don't think, if the Texans want to gamble with Stephon Diggs with his injury last year and see what he could do this year, they may throw a contract to him. But if not, I could see Stephon Diggs maybe going to the Cowboys, maybe going to the Steelers. I don't think he'd go to Green Bay. See, I can see him either landing with the Steelers or with the Cowboys.
I could see those things. I could see that happening. Stephon Diggs, he's He's one of those receivers that likes to go to the team that pays him the most bread, the team that's the hottest right now in the league. He likes to get his name out there. So I could see that him going to a big brand team like the Steelers or the Cowboys. It's going to be interesting to see what the Cowboys do this offseason because they got a lot of contracts that they're going to have to restructure. And I know Micah Parsons is going to be asking for some bread because Max
Yes, sir.
Crosby just made some bread. So Micah's definitely looking at his contract and thinking he wants something similar, if not more, than what Max Crosby's making. Shout out to Max Crosby for his extension. 4 years, I believe, $106 million, making him the highest non-quarterback player in the NFL. It's only a matter of time before Jamar Chase's contract breaks that. But, it's going to be interesting to see what the Cowboys do this offseason because the Cowboys definitely can't do what they did last offseason, which is nothing. Because we saw how that went. So, but I could see Stephon Diggs going over there to like the Cowboys or the Steelers. As far as the Texans go, I think they need help on the O-line. And I think if Stephon Diggs walks if they trade him or they just release him altogether, I think they're definitely going to use the free cap space that they'll have from him walking, and they'll definitely use that cap space to go out in free agency and get some offensive linemen because, man, that Texans O-line was bad. It was bad, and they were fortunate enough to make the playoffs given the division that they were in. But Texans O-line is a discussion for another day. Let's talk about the last and final aging receiver, D-Hop. Had his chance at the Super Bowl. Did not really have an impact in this Super Bowl, which I'm kind of surprised about. He's older guy, definitely approaching his last couple of legs here. Will he stay with the Chiefs? Will the Chiefs throw some offers his way, or was he just a one hit and really a miss in Kansas City? Will he bounce to another team? Oh, Devontae Adams, that's another receiver that's on the market. We got to talk about him in a minute, but let's talk about D-Hop. What do you think
DeAndre
happened to
Hopkins,
him?
he did great things in Houston. He did some good things in Arizona. Then he went to Kansas City. He did not put up. He did not go to my expectation of what he would do for Kansas City. So I don't really see Kansas City sticking with D-Hop. They might cut him because he is older. I think D-Hop's reaching the end. I think he's running out of fuel in that tank. So this might be his last year. I could see him maybe, landing to Jets, Jaguars, maybe the Chargers, somewhere. Or he might just, not get picked up. Because he is older. He's running out of fuel. That's just my opinion on D-Hop.
I agree with you there. I think D-Hop is coming up on his last legs. He had his chance at the Super Bowl. That's probably the closest he'll ever get. And we saw what happened in the Super Bowl. I don't think the Chiefs will look his way this offseason. I think they'll want to move on from him, and they'll want to get Xavier Worthy more involved because he did look great. Xavier Worthy did look great in the playoffs, so they'll probably want to rely on him a lot more. But I agree with you. He'll go to the Chargers maybe, or the Jaguars maybe, one of those teams that really need a reliable guy. Having said that, we got Davante Adams, another one of those older guys. Now the word out there is his hot spot is going back to Green Bay, which I don't think is a bad move, but that's the word out there right now that his best landing spot is going back to Green Bay. I don't think it would be a bad move if that came true because the Packers they kind of need some wide receiver help. They kind of don't, but what do you think? Davante Adams, could he go back to Green Bay, or is he looking to go to another team with Rodgers, or where do you think he'll end
So
up?
I could see him going back to Green Bay. They could take a gamble with him again. But I honestly see him following Aaron Rodgers. He did that this year. He tried it out with the Raiders. That didn't work. And he ended up back with Aaron Rodgers. He did not do anything for real. He hasn't been putting up numbers like he used to. But he is still a good receiver, though. You know what I'm saying? So landing back in Green Bay, his home team. That's where he grew up for his career. Not grew up, but played where he started at. And if he finishes his career in Green Bay, good for him. But I honestly see him following Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah, I could see that as well. Aaron Rodgers and him, they've been buddies pretty much their entire careers together. Again, I would not like to see that because they're both older guys and they both are coming up on their last limbs, and I don't think them together would really move an organization that's trying to win. But I think Devontae Adams still has a couple seasons left. I think he will get picked up to a team that needs a wide receiver. However, I don't think he'll have as big an impact as he probably would have had a few years back. So those have been some of the big name receivers that have hit the free agency block. There are a lot of other names out there too, but those are the biggest names that I think were worth mentioning and covering. Obviously, the Browns have some guys in free agency as well. I think it'll be interesting to see what we do now that we finally restructured Deshaun Watson. But with that being said, there have been some signings. Obviously, Saquon got a big extension. Max Crosby got a huge extension. And the Eagles also signed back Zach Bond, Defensive Player of the Year finalist, linebacker. They re-signed him. I forgot the numbers behind his signing, but they also signed him back as well, which I think is a very, very good move for the Eagles. He was great. I think he'll eventually win a Defensive Player of the Year. One of the best linebackers in the league. But let's talk about the Max Crosby extension and the Zach Bond extension, and what that means for those two teams specifically. Let's start with Max Crosby. 4 years, 106 mil, making him the highest paid non-quarterback in the league.
So Max Crosby, great defensive end, runner-up for Defensive Player of the Year a few times. He's right there with Myles Garrett and TJ Watt. And the Raiders, that's a good move for them, re-signing him, keeping him on the team. And Max Crosby puts out every year. I'm excited to see him play this year, sticking with the Raiders. I feel he could take DPOY, given Myles Garrett doesn't take it like he usually does.
That's true. We got to get. I'm hoping Myles Garrett gets at least another one. He gets up there with Nick Bosa and TJ at 2 apiece, but Max Crosby is that dude. He is that dude. He is a Defensive Player of the Year candidate. He is worthy of winning one. I think he'll eventually win one too. I think it's a good move for the Raiders. It's a solid move for the Raiders because he's kind of the only staple that they have over there. So why not try to get him to stay? I'm kind of surprised at him though that he wouldn't, that he didn't exactly pull a Myles Garrett and request out, because the Raiders, they're not good either. The Browns aren't good, but neither are the Raiders. I'm surprised he didn't request out either. He's given a lot of years to the Raiders organization. He's given a lot of years. I'm surprised his first instincts were not to walk. Let him know that he was going to walk. But good signing by the Raiders. He's definitely their franchise guy. Again, like you said, he's Myles Garrett level, TJ Watt level, and whatnot. But good signing for the Raiders. They needed that. He's the pillar of the team. Speaking of pillars of the team, Zach Bond, Defensive Player of the Year finalist from the 2024 season. Obviously, we know Pat Surtain won that. First DB to win it since 2019. Yeah, Stephon Gilmore was the last DB to win it. But Zach Bond, he was a finalist, played really well in the Super Bowl, had a pick, played really well all season long, and the Eagles decided to bring him back. Again, I forgot the whole numbers behind his contract, but they brought him back for a while. So what do you think about that?
I think it's a good deal for the Eagles. I feel they're trying to keep the team that they won the Super Bowl with. Obviously, they lost They lost Darius Slay, but keeping the team you won with is a good mindset to have. Try to keep all the guys that you did. Try to rinse and repeat of what you did last year. So re-signing the guy who you won a Super Bowl with, who put up good stats in the Super Bowl and all year, is a good deal for them.
Great move by the Eagles. He'll definitely be a staple player. He doesn't quite yet have the longevity with the Eagles yet, but he'll definitely be a staple player for the Eagles. It'll also be interesting to see what the Eagles do with the rest of their guys that need to be signed, or who else they might cut. But like you said, it is a good move because you want to be able to keep the same squad essentially that you had win the Super Bowl, try to make another Super Bowl run, which they could do if they managed to keep as many of the same guys from the Super Bowl squad. But good signing by the Eagles. The word out on the street about all these signings is there's been a common theme with some of these these signings and these releases and these cuts and these trades that I thought it was pretty interesting upon hearing. I thought it would be worth talking about because I've started to notice this, but you got all these receivers out there now, like DK and Tyler out there, and you know all the older receivers and all the other players from teams that they had huge contracts with. They're now deciding to walk. And one of the narratives out there now in today's day and age is these players are unhappy despite having huge contracts on the teams that they're on. The teams that they're on haven't been winning games. And you could chalk that up to being the same reason as to why Myles Garrett is leaving, because he's got a big contract here, but he's not winning games. So essentially, all these players now, they're walking not because of the money, but because they wanted an opportunity to win. So my question to you is, after hearing that narrative, and this is something that I've been hearing from the media, I thought it was worth bringing up because I'm starting to see a little bit of the same thing. All these star players leaving, not for the money, but for a chance to win. What do you think about that? A couple of years ago, we had guys leaving for the money as opposed to a chance to win, like Tyreek Hill and whatnot, Stephon Diggs and whatnot. Those are guys that left for the money, not a chance to win. But what do you think about the sudden shift and players now wanting to win more than make money? What do you think about that
So,
narrative?
I agree with what that theory is. Losing sucks. You put in all this work in the off season, then you start in the season, you're putting up, good numbers, good stats, or you're playing the best as you can, and then just to like Myles Garrett, the Browns went 3-14. The year before we went, what was it, 10-6, 10-7, and what we wanted to do was have a similar season to last year, and then it was like just went down. We went 3-14. I understand because losing is not a great feeling to have, and these players, they want to win. Myles Garrett says he wanted to bring a championship to Cleveland. Cleveland's not doing what they're supposed to do. This year was god awful, and it goes to your record, and then you get to the playoffs and losing the playoffs. I understand, it's not the greatest feeling. Losing just sucks. I'm just leave it at that.
It's true, losing does suck, and a lot of these guys, they've devoted a lot of years, like Max Crosby to the Raiders and Miles to the Browns. They've devoted a lot of years into these organizations, and some organizations, like the Cleveland Browns, they don't capitalize. And it's a shame to, if I was one of those guys, I wouldn't want to continue to play on an organization that is going to continuously fall short every year and make bad decisions every year. Now, Max Crosby is a little different. I thought he was going to walk because the Raiders are also bad, but he's a little different. He's the definition of a loyal player. But I wouldn't, if I was one of those guys, I wouldn't want to stay on a team despite making millions and millions of dollars. I'd want a chance to win the Super Bowl. And I think Miles is kind of inspired by the Eagles, because the Eagles got a lot of guys that are on multiple multi-dollar contracts, but they all won a big chip. They all just won a Super Bowl. So I think Miles is inspired. Miles is inspired by that, which is part of the reason, which I think might be part of his thought process into leaving, because he wants to be a part of an organization that can pay him big and also win, which is what the Eagles can do. But yeah, I also understand that narrative. I understand these players. I wouldn't want to devote half my career to playing for this organization that continues to fall up short every single year. I wouldn't want to do that. I'd want to have a chance to at least win one. I would be satisfied with at least winning one Super Bowl if I were these guys, especially with all the years that I've put in. I would be satisfied winning at least one Super Bowl. At least one. But yeah, I totally understand it. Totally understand these players. I understand the narrative behind some of these moves and these cuts. Again, it'll be interesting to see where these guys land. It'll be interesting to see where some of these older guys land.
And a lot of these guys, they deserve to win. At least I feel Myles Garrett would have a change in his mindset if at least we made the playoffs this year, or at least got above 500, because we didn't even get close to finishing above 500 or being a competitor in the at least in the division. So I understand it. Like,
We didn't even get close to
yeah,
winning 5 games. We didn't even get close to winning 5 games. Jameis Winston, he's another free agent that we gonna have to say goodbye to, because he's gonna want to win too. He's gonna want to get a starting job somewhere, which I wholeheartedly agree. He's a fun dude to have, and I think he's a good starter in this league. But Yeah, I agree with you, man. If we had just gone above 500 at least, if not made the playoffs, I think Miles would have at least given one more year. But we finally did something right. At least I can't stress it enough. We did something right, and we restructured that dude's contract. That dude has been a cancer to this team, and we can finally start to move in the right direction of our future. Obviously, Miles Garrett isn't going to be a part of it, which is a shame. But hey, man, he devoted 8 solid years to the Browns. And I think as a Browns fan, we can appreciate those 8 solid years. Having said that, this has been season 2, episode 10 of the Life's Playbook podcast. Noah, you want to add anything else before we close here today? I know this has kind of been a little shorter than what we're used to. Got anything you'd like to add real quick
Miles
about
Garrett,
maybe
if you
the
see
Browns and
this,
whatnot? Maybe Miles
please
Garrett.
stay in Cleveland. I know we're not meeting your standards, man, but like, just give it just one more year. Man. I love Cleveland, man. You're a great player out there. If you just stay one more year, I promise you, we're gonna get this quarterback in the draft. We're gonna build upon what we have. Defense, we're gonna help out with you, man. Just please stay with Cleveland, man. Help us win. I swear it's gonna turn around.
Hey, yeah, it's gonna turn around. We're gonna get a nice young guy in here. We are gonna kick Deshaun to the curb after his contract. It makes no sense to keep him. By the way, shout out to Donovan Mitchell for having a 26-point game. I bet the over on him last night on Prize Picks to average more than 23 points and a half. He got 26. So shout out to Donovan Mitchell. He will be on my lineups a lot more. But shout out to that dude. But with that being said, this has been season 2, episode 10 of the Life's Playbook podcast. If you haven't been keeping up with some of the off-season signings, cuts, releases, trades, yada yada yada, etc., the rumors, we encourage you to keep up with that. But we'll catch you guys Sunday for season 2, episode 11. With that being said, peace out.